Welcome back to True Crime with Griselda, where we delve deep into the dark corners of criminal history. I'm your host, Griselda, and today we're exploring the chilling case of Hadden Clark, a man whose horrific crimes have left an indelible mark on the world of true crime. Before we dive in, a quick reminder to subscribe to our channel so you never miss an episode. Now, let's get into the unsettling story of Hadden Clark, also known as the cross-dressing cannibal. Hadden Clark's story begins in the quiet suburbs of the 1950s. Born on July 31st, 1952, in New York, Clark grew up in a family that on the surface appeared relatively normal. But beneath this veneer, there were troubling signs. Both parents, well educated, had high expectations for their children. Clark's siblings reported that he was frequently overshadowed, which may have contributed to his feelings of inadequacy. This sense of being overlooked, combined with a strange family dynamic, laid the groundwork for his later behavior. Clark's parents were both alcoholics. They often fought with each other in front of their children. Clark's mother dressed him in girls' clothes when drunk and called him Kristen. His father later committed suicide. As a child, Clark exhibited some odd behaviors. He would often lie and manipulate those around him. But it wasn't until his teenage years that more concerning patterns emerged. Family and friends described him as increasingly withdrawn and erratic. Now fast forward to his early adulthood, Clark's academic and professional life was marked by instability. He struggled to maintain jobs and had multiple run-ins with the law for minor offenses. These signs of instability and antisocial behavior might have been overlooked, but they were crucial for understanding the trajectory that led to his gruesome crimes. Hadden Clark's criminal activities came into the public eye with the brutal murders of two young women. His first known victim was 6-year-old Michelle Dorr, who disappeared in 1986. Michelle, a 6-year-old friend of his niece, came over looking for her. Clark took Michelle to an upstairs room at his brother's house and slashed her throat with a chef's knife. Clark then attempted to sexually assault her corpse, drank some of her blood, ate a piece of her flesh, and stuffed her in a duffel bag. He buried her in a park 12 miles away. Her body was discovered months later. Clark's method was grotesque. He would often use his knowledge of the victims' lives to gain their trust before attacking. This pattern of behavior was a hallmark of his crimes, showing a chilling premeditation and lack of empathy. The second major crime involved the abduction and murder of 23-year-old Laura Totelling, who vanished in 1992. So let's see. His first one was in 1986. The second known was in 1992. Clark was Laura's mother's gardener. Clark entered the house through the back door, stabbed Laura to death in her bedroom with a kitchen knife, suffocating her with the pillow. He carried her body in a bed sheet through a wooded area and buried her half a mile away. Now keep in mind, his first victim was much smaller than the second, so he probably couldn't get too far. He left behind a pillowcase with his fingerprint as he moved the body. He later returned and dressed up in a wig and women's clothes and left through the front door to make people think that Laura left the house alive to buy some time to clean the scene. Police soon discovered the bloody pillowcase and linked the print on it to Clark. Clark confessed and led police to Laura's body 8 months after the murder. Her body was found in a similar manner, and the investigation revealed disturbing details about Clark's mode of operations. The investigators were stumped for a while, but crucial evidence and witness testimonies eventually led them to Hadden Clark. The breakthrough came when Clark was linked to the crime scenes through forensic evidence. His arrest in 1993 marked the end of a terrifying period for many. Understanding Hadden Clark requires delving into his psychological makeup. During his trial, mental health professionals assessed him and diagnosed him with a range of issues, including antisocial personality disorder and psychopathy. These diagnoses provided insights to his extreme behavior and lack of remorse. Clark's behavior was marked by a profound disconnect from social norms and empathy. His manipulation and deceit were not just tools, but a way of life, reflecting deeper psychological issues that contributed to his violent tendencies. Behavioral analysts note that Clark's crimes were characterized by a specific pattern. He targeted victims who were vulnerable. His meticulous planning and premeditated actions underscore his deep-seated psychological issues. Hadden Clark's trial was as dramatic as his crimes. The crime scenes were intense, with Clark himself displaying a disturbing calmness. The prosecution laid out a compelling case, showcasing the evidence in Clark's own confessions. In 1994, Clark was convicted and sentenced to multiple life terms without the possibility of parole. His sentencing brought some closure to the families affected by his crimes, but the shadow of his actions lingered on. Currently, Hadden Clark remains incarcerated, where he continues to be a subject of interest for criminologists and psychologists studying his case. His life behind bars had not been without its own controversies, but for the most part, he remains a grim reminder of the capacity for human cruelty. The legacy of Hadden Clark's crimes is profound. I don't know if we'd call it a legacy, but the impact of the victims' families was devastating, and his case prompted discussions about the warning signs of psychopathy and the importance of mental health intervention. His story serves as a stark reminder of how deep-seated psychological issues can manifest in horrific ways. Understanding such cases helps improve our approach to mental health and criminal justice. As we wrap up today's episode, remember to take a moment to reflect on the broader implications of Hadden Clark's story. It's a sobering look at the dark aspects of human behavior and the importance of vigilance in mental health. I was inspired to look into this story after watching a show on HBO Max that had just dropped in regards to Hadden Clark. I found it quite interesting. He is a highly known serial killer to some, but I hadn't heard about him, so I figured that others hadn't either. Okay, so right now there's 5 episodes to this show out. It's called Born Evil, The Serial Killer and the Savior. Don't get too far ahead because I'm going to cover a good bit of what happens, but I'm not going to go into detail. Each episode is 43 minutes long, so they're definitely going to go into more detail than I am on the 4-part series that I have going on. But yeah, definitely I would suggest or recommend taking a look into that if you want more details about Hadden Clark and the other episodes that we're going to cover. I really appreciate everybody who has subscribed to my channel and who has given me kind words, whether it be an email, a text message, a comment, or just subscribing to my page. I really appreciate that because this is something that I truly love, And one, I enjoy the research behind it and I like putting out facts. But just understanding the complexity of the human brain and why people do what they do, it has always been interesting. So I've been a true crime junkie for quite some time now. And I'm finally able to put my mark on the world with it. So I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you again for joining us on this harrowing journey into the mind of Hadden Clark. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe and leave us a comment. Stay tuned for our next episode where we'll dive further into this intriguing case. Until then, stay safe and curious. I'm Griselda, and this has been True Crime with Griselda.